Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back or welcome to the Sweet Nothings podcast. This is your home of relaxed, funny and informative chats all about the love of eating. We'll talk about the latest food trends, controversial opinions and all things edible. If you are new here or your busy little brain has forgotten, my name is Kelly and I'm a little bit of a food nerd, and I like to whisper these sweet nothings in your ear to remind you just how much joy there is to be had within the world of food. This month I am coming to you sweaty. If you are currently watching on YouTube at the moment, you will see I have my very 1950s method of air conditioning in hand, that being a €1 fan purchased from a kind of warehouse shop here in Italy, because it is 34 degrees at the moment steadily. It is summertime in Italy, and with all of the beauty that it brings with blue skies and incredible fresh food, it also brings challenging humidity and just a constant glow of moisture upon one's face, shall we say. So I do hope you'll forgive me. I also hope you'll forgive the sound of the cicadas going absolutely insane outside. It's what they do, but I need to keep the door open lest I faint. I don't say this merely to excuse myself, but also because it will be part of the topic of today's discussion. I want to talk about our favourite food seasons. But before we get into that, let's quickly touch upon the trends and the news that have been blessing and or plaguing us in the world of food over the last month. The only food trend I have really witnessed across social media this month is that of the TikTok smashed potatoes. Now, I have not partaken in this, nor has it been something that has overwhelmed the internet the way that things such as Dalgona coffee and the nature cereal phenomenon took over TikTok food trends last year. Probably because everyone only really wants to exist on ice lollies and fizzy juice within the heat that June can bring in many parts of the world. The only trend I've seen are people parboiling potatoes, seasoning them, crushing them a little bit so that the kind of skin breaks through the semi-fluffy center, and then roasting them again until they're crispy, but they look all smashed and rugged and rustic. It's a very, and I say this without wishing to be insulting, of course, because it does sound like one. It's a very kind of Jamie Oliver cooking trick. It's something that it works. You'll see it in restaurants. You'll see people cooking like that at home. And it's nice to see these kind of simple little hacks being added to people's cooking repertoire, because God knows those of us who live in chilly countries or just places where potatoes take up the main crop, we need some excitement with them sometimes, There's only so many ways you can dress up a potato. But aside from that, there hasn't been a lot in terms of food trends that I've seen this month. But there has been plenty of food news. The first and most traumatizing of which has to be I can't even remember which outlet brought this to me, but if you are outside of the US, you may not have heard of this brand. There's a brand called Velveeta. I'm not sure if they're also in Canada or in other parts of the world, but I know they are a brand from the United States. And Velveeta is one of these companies that creates what are legally referred to as cheese products, because they cannot be rightfully deemed cheese under United States law. Make of that what you will. These cheese products are basically the ones that are designed for the very kind of modern American Tex-Mex queso dip or nacho cheese dip, cheese sauces, things that are supposed to be portable and remain in a semi-liquid form. Or the kind that you may cook into, a very kind of, dare I say, child-friendly mac and cheese type dish. Or I have seen people use them in grilled cheese sandwiches and things like that. But Velveeta is typically a cheese product, let's put it that way. I've never tasted it, nor do I ever want to taste it, but that is what Velveeta is for those who are unaware. Now, Velveeta are in the news this month because they have collaborated with a nail polish brand. You do know where I'm going with this. And they have created 2 kinds of cheese-scented nail polish. Now, this isn't the first time this has happened. I'm almost positive that KFC did something like this, or one of the big fried chicken names did this and made a fried chicken scented nail polish. And, you know, it's a little bit of a hark back to the late 90s, early noughties scented pen scratch and sniff phenomenon that kids had in some form or another. But of all the things you could want your fingers to smell of, whether it's for yourself or whether you're interacting with other human beings on this planet, is quote unquote cheese product one of those preferred scents? I'm not judging. In the UK, however, something that has been cropping up in adverts all over the place, and one of my lovely YouTube viewers actually kind of tagged me in one of these things, is the Walker's Crisps In or Out advertising campaign. Now, Walker's really tend to hit it home with their advertising. They always manage to spread it far and wide, whether it's on TV or online. But their crisps in or out debate has been very star-studded. They've had people like Nigella Lawson and world-famous Gordon Ramsay involved in this advertising, Gary Lineker, as always. Big British names for a big British product, really. And while that alone is admirable, the advertising campaign itself is also quite entertaining. The whole crisps in, crisps out thing being whether crisps should be contained within or kept out of a sandwich of any variety. Now, it may not surprise you to hear that I am fully crisps in, not only because my lady and saviour Nigella Lawson is also on Team Crisps In, but simply because why would you limit your flesh pleasures on this earth just for the sake of decorum? You know, it looks a little bit trashy to put crisps in your sandwich, maybe, but does it taste and feel better? And is it a quicker and more efficient way of consuming the crisps that are often accompanied with your sandwich when you go out to get one somewhere? Absolutely. And I have no shame in that. The combination, folks, the combination of salt and vinegar crisps and a tuna mayo sandwich, I don't care what it looks like. I don't really care how bad it smells as long as I'm eating it by myself. It is explosively delicious. It's cheap, it's filling, it's, you know, nutritious somewhat. And it's bloody good. It's bloody good. The texture is there. The crunch works perfectly with soft bread with a soft filling. And the combinations are endless. A cheese sandwich with cheese and onion crisps, a ham and cheese sandwich with ready salted crisps, an egg sandwich with cheese and onion crisps, an egg sandwich with sour cream and onion crisps. Some of you might be skipping ahead because the concept is so disgusting. I do apologise, but I am firmly Team Crisps In. Do let me know. Get in touch on Twitter. Let me know in the YouTube comments, wherever you are listening or watching from. Let me know your feelings. But if you're going to have crisps with your sandwich, I am very much of the view that you should just have them inside it as well. Some other interesting news that's been popping up in the UK this month has been, I'll give you the bad news first, which is essentially that a lot of people, including the eating disorder charity BEAT, have spoken up against the recent law introduced for calories to be displayed on menus in certain restaurants. If you missed, it was either last month or the month before's episode in which we discussed this, but in the United Kingdom, from now on, if a restaurant or a restaurant chain has more than 200 employees or 250 employees, they are legally required to display the calorie counts of their menu items on the menu. And we discussed this in detail because it is it's a very grey topic. There are definitely good sides for some people, but there are tragic and disastrous sides for others. And unfortunately, a lot of people, including, as I said, eating disorder charities, are loudly speaking out against the negative effect this is already having on consumers in certain restaurants. Some, I have read, are providing restaurant menus with calories as a separate menu. So you could, if you like, request one without the calories, which is good at the start. It's definitely a thing, in this world in which we include vegans, vegetarians, those with allergies, those with gluten or lactose intolerance, etc., it makes sense to be able to include these things, but I just really, really hope it doesn't do more damage than good, but I fear that it may. And it's interesting we're seeing it pop up in the news already. In slightly more entertaining news, If you have ever been in a large city, in any city in the United Kingdom, and you have walked down a high street, there is a very good chance you have seen one of these kind of American candy stores, these huge, headachingly bright, neon lit, multicolored shops, just absolutely crammed to the brim with American style snacks, whether it's crisps, you know, the kind of fizzy juice that would be banned under EU law for its ingredients, overpriced imported sweets, terrible quality chocolate. My apologies to my US viewers, but comparatively speaking, that's exactly what American candy stores look like on our high streets. And they're everywhere, but there have been some big issues over the last couple of months, especially from those in Oxford Street in London. One of the problems that they are facing is that a lot of the goods they have imported or that they're stocking these stores with is like not even approved under UK or EU safety laws concerning edible products. For example, there was quite amusingly an enormous raid on Willy Wonka chocolate bars that were being imported. Now, it sounds ridiculous. It sounds like something from a TV show, from some kind of cartoon comedy sketch, but these have apparently been made, you know, so dodgy, so full of like mystery ingredients, and some have been long past their expiry date, some have been containing allergens that weren't listed on the label. You know, I laugh because it sounds ridiculous that one would raid Willy Wonka chocolate bars, but it's actually a pretty serious thing that they've found in a lot of these stores. And similarly, it appears that more and more of them are apparently essentially fronts for other illicit entrepreneurship, shall we say, because they cannot justify being open on Oxford Street, paying those prices, having a store that large with so much stock, going out of date, as I said, and making so little profit. So it's been quite interesting following along from a distance. Obviously, of course, it's a very serious matter, but I couldn't help but chuckle and share the chuckle with the thought of a raid on Willy Wonka chocolate bars. And these American candy stores being some kind of like underworld, you know, on our high streets, I think. Not all of them. Some of them will genuinely be people just trying to make a living that enjoy American sweets, or they found a gap in the market, which is fine. But the concept of that being the front for some kind of underground goings on I just found that quite entertaining this month. But that has been about it in terms of food news for this month of June. And I think it's about time we got into discussing the seasonal meat and potatoes of today's episode, which is, what is our favourite food season? Now, perhaps a bit of a strange question, because many of us are very far removed from the concept of eating seasonally, or sometimes eating seasonally is seen as a bit of a Tory activity, a bit of a, you know, middle to upper middle class activity in which you're able to select which fresh produce you like from your upmarket supermarket. But it's something I think people are becoming more interested in, even if they can't quite afford or, you know, have the time to look into exactly what eating seasonally really means and the benefits of it in terms of both your wallet and your health and your general enjoyment of food. But it's something I really, really love discussing. So as always, I asked you guys for your incredibly helpful input on Instagram and on YouTube, because I wanted to know, what is your favourite food season? You didn't have to kind of explain or go into detail exactly why, but I gave the option of, obviously, spring, summer, autumn, or winter. No particular month, because seasons tend to last, you know, just over a month or a couple of months normally. So I wanted to know which quarter of the year is your favourite when it comes to food. Interestingly, I think many people's food seasons seem to tie in with their favourite seasons generally, depending on their interest, depending on where they live is a very important factor. What they do for work is an important factor. And just the flavours and the vibes and the feelings, the way of cooking, All of this can tie into one, which perfectly makes sense. Obviously, we are in the kind of strong grip of the summer season at the moment in the Northern Hemisphere. Here in Italy, there are stone fruits and melons everywhere. Everywhere you turn, there are kilos of peaches for sale for prices that my UK eyes have never ever seen, and it's incredible. But equally, that comes with so much heat you can barely breathe when you're walking sometimes. So each season has its good and bad. So let's just talk through the seasons themselves and follow it up with what your favourites were and what my favourite is. Every single year in the Northern Hemisphere begins in the depths of winter in January. Some call it the most depressing month of the year. Some people adore the feeling of coziness, warmth, and togetherness that the dark and cold of January can bring. Some people see the positive in it. Some people count down every single day until the sun starts rising earlier and setting later. But January, much like its predecessor, December, and February, the month that follows it, it does bring some delicious things. Not to everyone's taste, but it certainly does bring them. In terms of fruits, things are sparse, and in countries like the UK, we have to import them all because we just simply grow almost nothing in terms of fruit in January and February or in the depths of winter generally. But the availability of fresh clementines and big, vibrant oranges is something that really does make winter worth it, if you like them. Equally, another insanely jewel-like and exotic feeling fruit you can get very easily in winter, imported or not, is the pomegranate. Now, I had never ever seen it as much as I did when I moved to Italy in the winter this year. I moved here in November, and by December and January, there were pomegranates everywhere. Now, I don't just mean in supermarkets, but you could walk past people's gardens and they had pomegranate trees in the garden. Now, that to me is insane. I am from a city made almost entirely of grey granite bricks. So even seeing people with actual fruit-bearing trees in their garden is utterly otherworldly to me. But to see pomegranates growing in someone's baccy, insane. But it's a flavour and a texture that is so deep and so kind of rich feeling, even though it is light and refreshing, which isn't necessarily a feeling you always want in January or February when it's cold. But oranges and pomegranate together or separately in sweet or savoury foods is just something glorious. Similarly, some of my absolute favourite vegetables crop up still in January and February, things such as parsnips, turnips, and beetroot. These are all very kind of sweet, sticky, starchy, and filling vegetables, strongly flavoured typically. The parsnip is a little bit divisive compared to its more vibrant cousin, the carrot, but it just makes the most gorgeous roasted vegetable. It makes beautiful soup. It's wonderful added to mashed potatoes. Turnip is very similar, or swede, as we Scots refer to as neeps, is an absolute favourite of ours in the winter, whether it's around Christmas time or around Burns Night in the midst of January. It's delicious. Beetroot, again, very divisive because of its super sweet, super earthy flavour and the fact it stains and dyes pink everything within a 2-mile radius of where it was sliced open, but all properly rich and satisfying vegetables available in some of the darkest months of the year, and they're truly delicious. Now, this obviously goes without saying that winter also includes Christmas, which, yes, is at the end of the year along with New Year, but it brings some of the most insanely indulgent and decadent foods that you wouldn't even be interested in at any other time of the year. The concept of a full 2-course, 3-course, 4-course, 5-course Christmas dinner, however you like to roll. The comfort of mince pies, the insane availability of all kinds of novelty chocolate, all kinds of novelty biscuits, everything is green, gold, red. It's a time of year in which you typically, even if you don't celebrate Christmas, if you celebrate other religious festivals, for example, or other kind of cultural feasts, there's always something in the depths of winter that makes it worthwhile when you're a food lover. Of course, as the snow starts to melt, we move into spring. And we are greeted with not just the last of the clementines and the oranges, but the other citrus fruits. We welcome lemons, we welcome limes, we welcome lovely, punchy grapefruits. We start to see rhubarb spring up everywhere for a very short time, but a very important time. We start to see the greens come back into season. You also see broccoli, cauliflower, asparagus. You see all of these lovely, fresh and light foods come into season just as the weather is becoming lighter and fresher. It's not quite warm yet. God knows in Scotland it's definitely not warm yet, but it sort of gently brings in these flavors that you're ready to have after the heaviness, the starchiness, and the satisfaction of some of the stronger and more filling winter foods. You want something lighter, you want something a little bit different. Just in time for us to roll into Easter and all of the novelty desserts come right back with a bang. You want a big heavy roasted leg of lamb? Of course you do. Do you want to follow that with a traditional cake and with 600 different kinds of chocolate eggs, chocolate bunnies, chocolate sheep, chocolate everything nowadays? Of course you do. Even if you don't celebrate Easter, again, if you celebrate some other kind of religious feast or festival at that point, I bet you're probably still eating way more than you plan to. And it's wonderful. You move on from spring once we have finished with the light flavors and all the decadence of Easter and other religious feasts at that time of the year. We move into the juiciest season of them all. The berries appear, the strawberries, the raspberries, the blueberries, the stone fruits show up. There are peaches and nectarines absolutely everywhere, whether you like them or not. Melons show up, from watermelons to the yellow and orange and green ones I can never remember the names of. They all taste vaguely similar when you're in the UK because they're not grown properly. Sweet, crunchy peppers. Tomatoes are so abundant, you'll be so bored of them in a good way. And of course, we start to think about all things cold. You start to actually want a salad for the first time in like a year. You're interested in ice cream more than you've ever been interested in chocolate or biscuits ever. You start drinking smoothies, you start wanting ice lollies, you start drinking more beer, more water, more cocktails. Everything needs to be cold and light, even if it's just for the 2 weeks of heat that a UK summer can consist of. Summer is very similar in Italy, except everything is obviously elongated over 3 months rather than 2 to 3 weeks that I'm used to in Scotland. When I'm from, typically you'll need to cool yourself down once it gets to 18 to 22 degrees, and that's the absolute maximum you'll get for no longer than 2 weeks. And it's usually weirdly at the end of May or like in June. And then it's just a sort of very average 12 to 17 degrees for the rest of the quote-unquote summer. But here in Italy, it's like from the first day of May up until now, where I am at the beginning of July, and it's expected to be like this until the beginning of September. It's just all light foods, snacking, eating late, eating small portions more regularly, and drinking fluids like you're about to die, basically. I have never consumed so much liquid in my entire life. I'm not really even an ice lolly kind of girl. I am usually a chocolate 24/7 kind of person, and even the thought of chocolate is genuinely challenging in this heat. It normally is in summer because you have the novelty of going for an ice cream instead, but here in this heat, I want ice cream twice a day. Or just for all 3 of my meals, to be honest, because just everything else is a challenge. But there's also something wonderful about that, because it means that when you go into supermarkets and you see the fruits and the vegetables there, you know they're fresh, you know they're, just so ripe, so strongly scented. You walk into fruit vendors here or into supermarkets here, you can smell melons, cherries, strawberries before you're even anywhere near them, because they're just screaming, "Eat me, God damn it, you need the hydration," and I am delicious. And they're absolutely correct. And while it's not a season I particularly prioritized before, I'm certainly beginning to see the merits of it more now that I'm living in a properly warm climate. But that said, it doesn't mean that part of me isn't missing the season that follows the summer. The season that all of the Pinterest and Instagram girlies love the most, and I am absolutely one of those girlies. When we welcome apples pears, blackberries, the elite berry if you ask me, pumpkins, squash, corn, and all of the novelty autumnal and Halloween treats that come in as soon as August is out the door. Even though September is barely, it clings somewhat onto both seasons, but once you're in October, it's not quite cold yet. It's not quite dark yet, but you're ready. You're ready to pull out your cardigan. You're ready to wear slightly thicker tights. You're ready to put the big clunky boots back on if you haven't been wearing them all summer anyway. God knows I'm with you there. But the juiciness of a conference pear, the absolute sour but sweet punchiness of a blackberry when it's at its proper ripeness in like mid to late September, pumpkins everywhere, and not just for Halloween, but in cakes, in spiced lattes, in soups, as a roasted vegetable. Squash is everywhere, corn is everywhere, and you start to see cinnamon flavoured things come back into the big chain coffee shops and bakeries and things like that. The cosy treats are there. All of the good cozy vibes are there without the grimness of winter. And that is what I think so many people love about autumn. You have that sort of childish anticipation for things like Halloween, for things like the build up to the Christmas or the festive period, whether you even particularly like Christmas or other religious festivals and feasts, whether you're just looking forward to the time off where you can hole up indoors for a few days, a couple of weeks, however your holiday calendar from work works. There's an anticipation in autumn that you know the good of winter is coming, but you're not currently suffering through the good before and after period of what winter is actually like, wherever you live, if that makes sense. At least that's how I view autumn. And with all of the good and the bad that comes with all of these seasons, this is exactly why I wanted to poll you guys without kind of pushing any of my agenda onto any of you, with just the options for telling me which was your favourite. The results have been fascinating because they have not been what I expected with my own prejudice. In last place, in terms of what you guys voted on Instagram and on YouTube for, was spring. Unanimously. No one was a fan of spring. Now, I kind of get this. It's probably also my least favourite season when it comes to food. There are some delicious things. I love me some asparagus. I love me some citrus fruits. And it's nice having that in-between period of the heaviness of winter and just the salad-laden days of summer. But spring was just no one's favourite. Even with the promise of Easter chocolate, Easter cakes, other kind of novelty, religion-derived treats, no one was a fan. No one was really rooting for spring. There were a couple of diehards in there. There were a couple of people voted for it, but it really was not a favourite unanimously. In third place of our 4 food seasons came winter. Now, I didn't expect this, but I imagine it probably comes tied into the fact that winter is just many people's least favourite season, full stop, because of the darkness, because of the cold, because of the isolation it's very easy to feel in winter. And if you're someone who doesn't enjoy the festivities of Christmas, of New Year, of whatever it is that your culture celebrates, I can totally understand how winter would just be an incredibly suffocating time of year. And I imagine that many people's dislike of winter food or of the winter season comes from the vibes they have towards those whole 3 to 4 months, especially in the darkness of Scotland and of the UK, where many of my viewers do hail from. I had expected it to be higher, but it also isn't a huge shock that it was in third place. What came in second place was what interested me, because in second place, through all the polling, came autumn. The Pinterest and Instagram girlies did not prevail in the way I thought they would. Autumn was deemed the second favourite because so many people love, as I said, the coziness, the flavours that begin to crop up in autumn, the way that you begin to eat again in autumn after months of fresher foods, of lighter foods, of less cooking. Autumn, you begin to get back into proper old-fashioned cooking, into soups, into roasted foods, into bigger, heartier meals. And it came second, but quite a distant second by some of the polling, to the favourite, which was undoubtedly summer. I hadn't expected this, mostly because it's not my favourite whatsoever, but so many people absolutely loved summer. Probably, as I said, relative to winter, probably tied somewhat into their love of the sunshine, of the brightness that the summer season brings, and the fact that many people tend to go on holiday during the summer, whether it's in their own town, city, nation, or whether they go abroad for a week or two. It's probably tied up in all of this wonderful, almost childhood-like nostalgia of what the summer season can bring, and just the sheer amount of variety you get in natural product in summer. You're not limited to just a couple of flavors. You have the selection of, say, 60% of all the fruit and vegetables you could ever need in one go, and they're all good. They're all at their best. They're all at their cheapest. And a lot of people, because of the more free time or because of the longer days that summer allows for, I imagine they feel that they can enjoy it more. You can go to the ice cream van and get something you haven't eaten for a whole year. You can eat a salad and not feel like you're punishing yourself. There's so many benefits to the summer season that even though I expected it perhaps to be in second place, I do understand how it managed to take the crown. And so many people were passionate about it in comments and in messages. So thank you all for your input for that, because it is very interesting. Summer, as a food blogger, as a creator online, is a difficult time because most people are not as heavily online during the summer as they are in other parts of the year, which is a good thing. Socially and mentally speaking, that is absolutely a good thing. But when you're a kind of food content creator, summer can be difficult because you just generally generate less traffic, whether it's to blog recipes, whether it's here on YouTube, or whether you're listening on Spotify. Typically people are outside doing more things, seeing more people, having more fun, going on holiday, which is a good thing. But it can sometimes be a challenging time of year to be creating content and creating things that people will actually witness, people will actually enjoy, and it's difficult to know what to create. And so it's quite good for me to see that summer is some of your favorite seasons, because it means that I maybe should just, pull my finger out and create more summer content in terms of keeping you guys here for longer or getting you guys to come back at all. Don't leave me. Because clearly summer recipes are in demand. Even, when it comes to turning on the oven on a hot day, some people do still want something sweet and delicious made with summer ingredients. So it's incredibly useful to know that. And I really appreciate, as always, all of the input and feedback you guys give me, even if it's just clicking on one of the poll options. It's been really interesting to see the results. As for me, you may have picked up on already, my favourite season is undoubtedly autumn. I do love all seasons. Personally, I would probably put spring fourth, summer third, winter second, and autumn first, just because I'm a November baby. I'm from a cold country. Most of the things that to me taste like comfort, taste like home, taste like nostalgia and good memories are heavy, comforting, rib-sticking things that you eat typically in autumn and winter. Because our spring and summer seasons are so short, it feels natural that I lean towards that. And because I love deeply flavored foods, I love hot foods, I love carb heavy, properly filling foods, I love foods generously spiced, all of the things that you crave and you enjoy so much more when it's cold outside, when it's dark outside, or whether you're eating with more people because there's some kind of festivity going on. And as I said, all of the anticipation that autumn brings for the goodness of winter foods, for winter feasts, for celebrations, for just allowing yourself to, to enjoy those gorgeous and seasonal foods more than you might do in spring or summer. I love autumn. I love every single thing that it brings. And mostly because every year you kind of forget how depressing winter can be, and autumn just feels like this wistful time in between the goodness of summer and the semi-goodness of winter. But this has been truly, truly interesting. It's, I probably have offered absolutely zero insight or, information or entertainment to any of you in this episode. It's mostly just been me recounting the findings of an Instagram poll, I understand. But I just find this kind of stuff really interesting. I am still new to the whole concept of eating seasonally, being born in the mid-90s. Almost everything is available almost all the time with modern technology, with the way that we ship and import and export foods. So learning to be more in touch with what is growing when, what is good and what is cheap and best for us and best for the environment during each season is something I'm constantly fascinated by, and it's been really, really nice to get your insight into why as well. So thank you so much. That is all I have time for today. That's all I want to bring you until we get into the depths of July, and you'll get to hear and see me even more glowy with sweat and high SPF cream. I very much look forward to it. Thank you as always for being here, for your input, for listening, and I will see you for the next one. You're listening to the Sweet Nothings podcast. If you want to support the production, get access to exclusive foodie content, and early access to podcast episodes, you can do so via Patreon. Just search for Sweet Nothings or Maverick Baking on Patreon, and thank you for everything.